Hi, E. I'm glad you're here with me. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for welcoming me. So I would like to talk about my middle child. I have three kids. They're all girls. Ages are 11, 7, and 5. And my question is, I don't know how to make my 7-year-old feel special, valued. A few days ago, I asked her a quick question. I said, "How many kids do you want to have?" And she said, two or three, actually two, because two is a better number. It's very difficult to be a middle child. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, my oldest sister says, "Leave my room." And my younger sister always interrupts whatever I'm doing when I'm having a play date or whatever I'm doing. If I have a private whatever tour that I want to keep for myself, I feel like I have to share everything or I have to deal with a tantrum. It's really hard to be a middle child, mom said. And I
Oh,
feel so bad for her, and I want to somehow make her feel special. I know that I need to spend more quality time with her one to one. I'm reading one book every day before she goes to sleep, and I cuddle, I hug her, I tell her that I love you so much. But obviously, this is not enough for her, I guess. Um, I don't know what to do.
beautiful. I just feel so much tenderness toward your daughter and really kind of impressed and with her clarity. Like she's at 7, amazingly observant and present and self-aware. And it's very sweet that you want to kind of address that such an interesting way, like how many children she might want to have led to that realization that she's really been thinking about this. Like, oh, I don't want to lay on my children some of the experiences of being a middle child that I've had. So even though it's a hard thing to hear and you're concerned about it, I also would sort of encourage you to pat yourself on the back that you've raised a daughter who is able to articulate. She kind of knows what's going on inside of her. She's thinking about things like that, thoughtful and reflective. And so, a lot to be said for having raised a child who could do that. So let's start with the positive.
Thanks.
Um, so you be her. Let's just role play this because I think it's an easier way for me to sort of demonstrate some of the ideas I teach called Act One parenting versus Act Two, coming alongside versus coming at, making it safe for kids to tell us without jumping in with advice, really helping them feel heard, and oftentimes pulling on a thread. So when I talk about pulling on a thread, it's really about the child presents a dilemma or a complaint as if that is the thing they're upset about. But oftentimes it's just a hint. It's like a clue. And we play detective and we pull the thread to see what's this really about? Is there something else? And then we can look at possible solutions. How does that sound?
Sure.
So you're going to be your 7-year-old daughter. And sweetheart, thank you for telling me all these things you've been thinking about in terms of having just two children so you don't put your own kids in a position like you've been in. I appreciate you telling me, even though it sounds like it's been kind of hard for you.
Yeah, it is. It is hard.
So you have some disadvantages of being younger than your big sister, and then other things that you don't really like that happen because you're older than your little sister, right?
Yeah, my youngest sister, she's always the cute one and she gets the all attention. Otherwise, she starts yelling.
Yeah,
And my oldest gets the other attention. Everything is being purchased to her first, and I usually have to deal with whatever is left over, the
yeah,
hand-me-down from her.
yeah, yeah,
And whenever I enter her room, she says, "Just leave, just go away."
yeah,
And I don't like to be left out. It's not a good
yeah,
feeling. I feel sad when she says that.
yeah.
And I want to actually be with her friends when her friends come over. And I'm
Hmm.
never part of a play date. So everything is all about them.
Just really listening to you right now, it almost hurts my heart a little bit because I'm just really imagining how uncomfortable that is when you want to play with her friends and they're right there and they don't include you, or when she gets things and you have to kind of get the leftovers or the and then your older sister, your younger one being getting attention and being cute and demanding it, and it's hard to
It
hear.
is. Yes,
Yeah.
remember a few days ago we were on a family vacation and our older cousin was with us and she always gets to be with my older sister, but I'm
Uh,
always left out. They
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
escape, run away from me. They
Mm,
do their own things. I know that they're teenagers, preteens, whatever they are, but I want to be part of them at least for a
yeah.
few hours. If they can include me, that would be wonderful. But
Yeah.
I can't get to be with my older cousins because my oldest sister is with them. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what? You're describing a really hard situation. And it's one of those times as a parent when if I had the magic wand and I could make it all different, that's what I would do. Let's just start by you hearing me say, that sounds really icky. That is a yucky, yucky situation. So I'm going to pause the role play for a second here. And I want to just clarify and point out this is not a fixable problem. I mean, there are some remedies that we can do to help her feel better in her skin, but it's really important in life to come to learn how to cope with non-fixable problems. It doesn't mean we give up. It doesn't mean we want people to move into despair because they can't affect change in difficult situations. But there are circumstances where the best we can offer our children is support while they discover that they can survive difficult, unfixable situations. Do you know what I'm saying? Your daughter, for instance, I'll say personally, I will never be 6'5". In my lifetime, me, Susan Stiffelman, I will also never have blue eyes, right? I will never be a championship fencer or horse person. There's a lot of things that if I longed for those things, I could live a life of despair because they're never going to be possible. Your daughter will never be the same age as her older sister, and therefore she will never be desired as a playmate for her sister and friends in the same way. It's just never going to be there. So, what I think a lot of times as parents, we make the mistake of saying, but you could do this instead, or when they come over, why don't you try this? Or you could, right? And there's a place for that. But what I love about this situation that you're describing, even though I'm sorry that it exists and that you have to face it and that your daughter does have to face it, it beautifully illustrates something that as parents, I think we sometimes don't understand is being asked of us. We think that when a child complains about an unfixable situation, that really the first thing we should do and the thing we should focus on is how to help them work around it. And there will be ideas that we share with her. But the most important thing is helping her grieve this situation. This is her life path, that she is a middle child. It will never be different unless you have more kids, and then she'll be in another configuration. So in this role play, you'll notice that I'm not giving her quick tips for what she can do when the cousins don't want to play
Mhm.
with her or when her sister tells her to get out of her room. I'm not starting there. I'm going to start with conveying my confidence in her capacity to cope with this very difficult, unfixable situation. Does that make sense?
Like coaching and understanding,
Mm-hmm. Well,
acknowledging.
it's almost like grief counseling in a way, and I'm saying that a little dramatically, but it's a little bit like meeting her where she is, being present with the sadness or disappointment of where she is, not conveying a franticness or a desperation to make her not be sad about it. And then we move her once, because the amazing thing about human beings is how resilient and adaptable we are. And then once she's had a chance to be witnessed in the pain of this predicament, then she'll be in a better position to collaborate with me on things that she might do to make this a less difficult situation.
So you say, if I understand right, it's going to help her to accept one, her role and the situation that she's in.
Yeah.
So maybe she's going to accept and hopefully move on.
Well, she will at some point. Every child who gets a scraped knee and they come to the parent and they're crying and the thing they inevitably, if it goes well, if it goes according to the plan, they say, they get the Band-Aid, they get the kiss on the owie and they run outside to play again. I mean, that we have in us, all of us, this built-in adaptability and resilience that says, okay, I will face the hardship, I will feel my sadness, and I will then move on. It's how we survive the loss of a loved one. We get buried in grief, depending on how close that person was to us. For a while, we're kind of incapacitated to some degree if we're willing to feel the sadness. It's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And yet, it is part of the process, feeling the sadness, feeling all the feelings. As Gordon Neufeld talks about the futility, this will never be different than it is in some areas. Doesn't mean we don't try to make changes in our lives, but she will never not be the second child in your family. Then it frees the child up energetically to go, okay, well, I can feel sad now. I can work with some adaptations. So I don't want to take too much longer because this could be a really deep, long discussion. And I appreciate the fact that this is sort of a peek into how I work. But just to wrap up the role play, let's move back into the role play. And I would just say, as the mother to you, sweetheart, thank you for letting me know. It sounds like this is a place where there's a lot of frustration and sadness. Is that how it is for you sometimes?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And maybe you feel, well, not maybe, it sounds like you feel left out. You feel like you're not getting the same treatment that you wish you could have that your sisters are getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, stopping the role play, I would say, can you tell me more about that? Tell me how that is for you. Can you tell me the part that's the worst? Anything that lets her offload. We're just letting her be
That
heard without, well, honey, but your younger sister might get to do this, but you get to do other things she doesn't get to do yet. Or your older sister might get to be with a cousin, but I'll tell you the truth. Sometimes she tells me she doesn't like her cousin very much because her cousin's so bossy. So these are our natural, understandable efforts to mitigate the child's complaint. But what I'm recommending is we don't do that for a little bit. We just say, wow, it just sounds like this is just a really icky, yucky, hard situation for you. Is there more you would like to share with me about it? And then you might say, how was that? Or where do you feel that? Or, do you sometimes just want to stamp your feet and throw things at them when they run away? It would make sense. I'm glad you don't, but it would make sense if you did. So I'm going to
so
pause. Yeah, go ahead.
so it sounds like you would listen with your heart deeply and understand the
Yeah,
feeling and touch
yeah,
her heart and
yeah.
just be there, just be present, and that's it, nothing more.
And that's the hard part, isn't it? The nothing more. It's really hard. We want to take action. We want to make it feel better. We want to offer suggestions, helpful
Yeah,
advice.
exactly. Actually, I was waiting more. I was expecting like a homework for myself. How do I make her feel special? Do I need more mommy time, mommy day, whatever it is? But none of those.
Maybe. I mean, it's not to say that I wouldn't also say, look, there might be ways that we can offer her some support she isn't yet experiencing, ways to feel independent of her sisters, that she matters not only to you, but to the world. I don't think her complaint is that you're neglecting her necessarily. I think it's that her sisters are, elbowing her off the stage, so to speak. The younger one is cute and gets attention. The older one has privileges and friends. And so I don't think she's saying, Mommy, I don't think you pay attention to me or that I'm not special to you. I'm not hearing. Now maybe she is. Is she also adding that in there?
No, I asked her, I said, how would I change the situation if I wish I would be helpful? Is there a way that I would be helpful to you? What would help? And she said, yeah, if you would allow us to lock our bedroom doors, that would be helpful. So my younger sister wouldn't jump into my bedroom in our rest time, quiet time, whatever it is on a weekend. So that
Mhm.
would be helpful because usually I say,
Okay.
okay, no, no,
Well, so
no.
then you have something to work with there, and that would be the place I would eventually Not right away. Take your
Yeah.
time with this first thing we've talked about. And it might even be later in the day or another day entirely. You know, sweetheart, the other day you were telling me how hard it is with your sisters. And one thing you mentioned that I've been thinking about with your younger sister coming in your room, I had some thoughts. Would you like to hear them? And then you ask her, and you, as your daughter, what would she likely say?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
I was thinking, well, you know, you're right. I don't let you lock your doors. It doesn't feel safe, and I'm not willing for that to happen. But I do think you've made a really important point, and that you have a right to more privacy with your little sister. So let's talk about some ideas. In fact, I brought this big pad of paper or a whiteboard for us to scribble down our brainstorm about ways that we can um, encourage or set limits or boundaries for you with your little sister so she doesn't just get to come in when you want to be alone. Would that be helpful to you?
Yeah, that would help.
Okay. Now, the other option we might do is not involve her and just have a family meeting and say, okay, you guys, we're going to talk about boundaries in this meeting. You know, then we're going to have movie night or we're going to have some fun together, but we're going to talk about boundaries. And so you might not ask your daughter to come up with ideas on setting boundaries with her little sister. You might just announce what those boundaries are to the little sister, or you might have a conversation just with the little sister and say, you know, this is a new thing that we're going to be doing, 5-year-old daughter. We're going to, when you want to go in your 7-year-old sister's room, these are the rules. And you can then role play that a few times and, you know, have some fun with it. You could pretend that you're going into her room and you're just barging in, and then she gets to feel the power of saying, nope, you got to knock 4 times first and hear me say you are admitted, or enter, you may enter. Like that, you kind of make it a little bit silly to lighten the mood a bit around it. Could you try that? Do you think that might be helpful?
I think so. I'll give it a try. Thank you.
Nice. All right, so we'll wrap it up. No, these are these little condensed sessions that are packed with so much, so many different tangents we could go down. But my goal for this podcast season is to really give people a glimpse into some of the work that I do, you know, in applying the principles I've written about in my books. And this is, thank you so much for, you know, being brave and sharing your situation. Any thoughts?
This is super helpful. Just in general, even 10, 15 minutes is teaching us a lot to
Nah,
listen only with your heart without saying, but you have this, you have that.
yeah,
Trying to change the perspective instead, just listening. It's hard.
awesome.
It's also difficult as a mom, but I'm gonna work on that.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard when our child is unhappy. We so desperately want to make things better for them and offer suggestions. The problem is the suggestions typically don't work anyway, so it just compounds the problem. So,
Thank you so much
ah,
for your time. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
so welcome. And you know, for all of you listening, this is just, you know, a chance for you to kind of reflect on how you are with your kids, maybe learn something. Of course, you're welcome to check out the membership. This is what I do twice a month with parents. And but in the meantime, listen and take ideas from these conversations. And we always welcome people to volunteer like you have. If you have a situation you'd like me to do a little short session with, you can email us at Susan at susanstiffelman.com. Thanks, E.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.